Live from Utah's first TV station, ABC4 News celebrates 75 years.
Hello, I'm Sarah Murphy. Thanks for joining us this evening for ABC4 News at 5. We begin tonight with an update on an apartment fire that started earlier this morning. ABC4's Annika Johns joins us live from Sandy, the apartment complex, with the latest from the fire department. Annika?
That's right, Sarah. According to Sandy Fire, smoke was spotted by authorities at the Liberty Heights apartment complex just before 3 a.m. just last night. The fire department then went door-to-door knocking to wake up residents. Authorities stated that they called dispatch and then started knocking and banging for people to get out of the building. The fire lasted for 45 minutes and affected 8 of the 12 apartments. The fire also went through the attic and roof. There were no major injuries, but one firefighter had minor injuries, and one resident and 2 Sandy PD were treated for smoke inhalation.
I came out the front here and I ran that way, and I seen the smoke coming out that top middle window apartment, and it was so hot that the glass started to break.
When speaking to residents who lived in the building, they told me that no fire alarms were heard until a majority of the building was ablaze. As of now, the cause of the fire is still under investigation. Reporting live from Sandy, Annika Johns, ABC4 News.
And a house in South Summit also caught fire this morning. South Summit fire crews arrived around 9 o'clock. They reported seeing flames coming from the roof. Now, because of the narrow and slick roads leading to the house and the snow and ice on the fire hydrant, they say stopping the fire was tough. Crews eventually say they did contain the fire, but the house is left with heavy smoke damage and a large part of the roof burned off. No firefighters or residents were injured, but they did say, fortunately, a little bit of good news, they were able to save the family cat. Now in southern Utah, a hiker in Washington County called police after finding human remains. Washington County Sheriff's Office says they found the remains at Sheep Bridge Road, an unincorporated area. Police say there's no danger to the public and that there appears to be no signs of suspicious circumstances surrounding the death. They say they're continuing to work to confirm the identity of the individual. A Utah man is in the hospital after he was injured while fishing in Wasatch County. Wasatch County Search and Rescue responded to the emergency call in Strawberry Reservoir just after midnight. They say the 55-year-old man was taking down his tent, and because of the high winds, he was slammed into the ice. They say the rescue took about 3 hours. The man right now in the ICU. And Little Cottonwood Canyon has reopened after being closed for avalanche mitigation and road clearing this morning. UDOT posted some of these photos and videos showing all the work they've been doing to clear the roadways and to make sure avalanche risk is under control. They say they're expecting to close again tonight at 8 through tomorrow morning. We're checking now in on your pinpoint weather forecast with meteorologist Nate Larson. Now, Nate, looks a bit snowy up in the canyons. How about for us here in the valley the next few days? Yeah, so nearly 2 feet of snow, 23 inches reported at Snowbird in the last 24 hours or since the storm began on Saturday. And we're continuing to see, Sarah, some more snow showers move in. In fact, here's a look from the University of Utah out towards the west. We've got another batch of weather moving through. In fact, pretty dicey conditions as far as some of the returns we're seeing. Enough sunshine throughout the afternoon has generated some instability in our atmosphere, and we're seeing lightning strikes out in the West Desert. 44 degrees right now at the airport. South winds at 15 miles an hour, making it feel like 37, but winds are whipping ahead of this next trough that's moving in. Another front throughout the evening hours. In fact, we even have a risk of thunderstorms, a margin, or not a general risk, I should say, of thunderstorms. We've seen some lightning strikes just south of I-80. We'll show you here on Storm Tracker radar. But there is that risk of thunderstorm activity, if not snow squalls developing across the West Desert, including portions of the Wasatch Front as this moisture continues to move from the southwest towards the northeast. And so there is a snow squall that's been working towards the northeast, moving across I-80 right now. So travel not recommended in a snow squall. You get very reduced visibility, very intense snowfall, and strong winds that make travel almost impossible in those events. And we're seeing some radar returns over the Great Salt Lake as well. So we're expecting moisture to increase across the region throughout the afternoon. I think the heaviest snowfall will be from about 5, 6 o'clock into the overnight hours, or the evening hours, I should say, as this batch of weather moves through. So here's Futurecast about 7 o'clock. Should be pretty widespread snow showers across the Wasatch Front.
Not expecting as much the further north you go. Most of the snowfall will be south, I think, of Salt Lake County, extending into the central part of the state with winter weather advisories that have been issued. We'll cover those in just a bit. For right now, planning out the hourly forecast, about 44 right now, increasing moisture, 36 at 6 o'clock. Plan on snow showers increasing, temperatures dropping as well with snow likely to 9 o'clock, about 33 degrees. For our temperature, again, how much is going to pile up? We'll have those numbers for you coming up in just a bit, Sarah.
All right. Thank you, Nate. So with the latest snowstorm, Summit Park at the top of Parley's Canyon is over 140% of its normal snowfall. Parley's Summit is important to watch as the Great Flood of 1983 was triggered by all the melted snow that came down the canyon and joined other rivers, overflowing their banks. Some locals even might remember the famed State Street River. We turn now to our Craig Worth, who was there for that event 40 years ago. It's worth watching.
Oh, the State Street River was famous in Philadelphia, in Kansas, and all over America, including Indiana, too. What river on State Street, you ask? Well, this is State Street as we saw it over the last week. Note the piles of snow. You ought to see the piles of snow in the mountains. The fear is that we could have a repeat of how this State Street corner looked in 1983. Yeah, when there was a river of melted snow roaring down the street. People talk about the flood of 1983 pretty much every spring when the snow melts. You see, we had record amounts of snow in the winter of 82-83, try 700 inches at Parley's Summit versus a norm of about 300 inches. And a really cold May. That is until the last week of May when it hit 90 degrees. At first they thought they could hold it all at Mountain Dell in Parley's Canyon. It didn't work. The water came. Manholes became geysers. Water came down 13th South out of Parley's Canyon. It gushed through Memory Grove, tearing out a new channel. Things didn't look too good. People had about a day to save the town, and it all amounted to an equivalent of an old barn raising. Thousands turned out to sandbag the city. For the first time, even churches were canceled on May 29th. It was no picnic on the holiday weekend. 1 million sandbags, yes, 1 million sandbags were stuffed with sand. Plastic riverbeds made a new roaring river. There was a human chain. Sandbags went from the big sand pile down the street and into the river.
Well, by about the second day, we knew this was a big deal. Why? Because they were already selling t-shirts. I am a Salt Lake City sandbagger and the spirit of 83.
And of course, the souvenir of the decade, water from the flood. Oh, it had a warning, do not drink. Now, what's wrong with drinking opaque, dirty flood water from City Creek that was turning the city into a creek? The masses and sandbags had moved on to State Street. People worked day and night and made a new river, the State Street River. The new river would run from Memory Grove all the way to about Dirks Field. It was quite a river. It even had rapids. People had a sense of humor about it all. One claimed to have caught a fish in it. Well, there is the guy and the fish. We don't know if fishing without a license on State Street is as bad as driving without a license on State Street. But it wasn't just a river. In one day, bridges were built over the mighty State Street River. Some for cars, some for people. And like any good river, it became a destination tourist site. It just seemed very strange. A river roaring down the street. Kind of a combination downtown Riverwalk and Venetian-style canal. And life went on around it and over it. About the worst thing about the State Street River was this. The sandbags blocked the old Center Theater. Well, that meant Star Wars, Return of the Jedi, had to go to a theater on dry ground. Well, that was big news then. The city spent about $150,000 a day to keep the river flowing, and it did.
And then it was time to take it all apart and drain the mighty State Street River.
13 days later, all was done, and the city picked up its million soggy sandbags and tore out the $30,000 bridges that were put up in just one day. The city hosed down the street, and all of this became a memory to talk about every spring. Craig Worth, ABC 4 News.
All right, coming up, taking a look at the severe storm moving across the West Coast, how millions of Americans are handling still being under winter alerts. Stick around. We'll be right back.